And here's our final version, and you've seen this before because originally before I kicked the project off, I went ahead and recorded the assembly of this so I would have the final version, but then I would also have the video of me assembling it. Well, 6 or 7 weeks has gone by and I have no idea where that video went at all. I looked everywhere. I found 1/3 of the video. So I don't know what happened, but this is the final version, and I ended up making some tweaks while I put that together anyway, because if you notice, I've got some wires and connectors on these components that weren't on the original one, because as I put it together, I found out there were some spots where you guys would probably have some trouble. So I went ahead and made some tweaks to that, and that video obviously didn't have those tweaks in it. So anyway, due to the magic of video, you now get to watch me take this apart and then put it back together for a 3rd time. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's go over these parts before we get started. Your little acrylic components here, there's going to be a handful of them. There's this large one, and then there's 4 of these. So the first thing you're going to want to do, and obviously I've already done this because I've had mine put together, is peel that paper off. Now you might have a hard time getting it off, but if you're persistent and take a few minutes, you will be able to get it off. You kind of have to work on the corners there. It's stuck on there pretty good, but go ahead and take that paper off the acrylic so that you've got it. Now this acrylic will scratch pretty easily, and we really don't care because it's just a chassis. But if you are working with acrylic on a different project where you can see through it, just be aware that it can scratch pretty easily. So we've got our chassis, which is this big acrylic piece. We've got our battery holder. I've got the switch. I've got the little front caster. I've got 2 of these. Actually, these aren't going to be on yours. Let's take those off real quick as well, just so that yours looks the same as mine. So you've got 2 motors, and they are identical, so it doesn't matter which is which. And then we have 2 of the wheels. Now, you will need a couple of tools, but if you don't have them, it's okay. You can kind of fudge it a little bit, but you're going to need like a Phillips screwdriver or a really small flathead screwdriver. I would go with a small Phillips screwdriver, actually kind of any size. These screws are pretty forgiving. And then you may want to grab a small pair of pliers or needle nose pliers or something like that just to hold some of the nuts there when we put those together. But again, that's kind of optional as well. It doesn't really matter. You should be able to kind of get enough torque on it to get them attached, and of course it's not going to have a lot of pressure on it. So these are all of our components. Make sure you have all of them. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of these real quick. Now this originally, and you might have recognized from the original video where I was taking some of these things apart, did not have these crimps on the end. And the reason they didn't have the crimps on the end is because they wanted you to kind of attach it or solder it yourself. And I thought this would be a lot easier if I went ahead and crimped those. So these didn't have crimps. This switch didn't have these wires on it, and I went ahead and attached these 2 wires for you. And you'll notice they're soldered on here on this end, and then this has got a little female on one end, on the short end, and a male on the long end. And then these guys didn't have wires either, and I went ahead and attached a white and a red, and I just did them consistent. So if you hold them this way, white is on the right and red is on the left. Now it doesn't really matter, but I wanted to be consistent so that when you wire them, you'll be able to know which is which. Now keep in mind our DC motors, if we're going to have the wheels turn at the same time in the same direction, one's going to have to go forward and one's going to have to go reverse. So we will actually wire these up backwards. So anyway, those wires I put on for you guys. And then over here in the little tiny parts container, which you're probably going to want to grab your little tray to put these in or something else. Otherwise, they're just going to go everywhere. These we're not going to use, but we'll go ahead and attach them anyway since they're part of the kit. These are used to kind of shine a light through and detect when the wheel's moving, and then we can also detect speed. But we don't have the components to do that, but that's what those are for. You're going to find 4 of these little brass standoffs, and those go on the front caster. Like I mentioned, you're going to have 4 of these. They are all the same. Make sure you take the paper off them. And then you're going to have some long screws and some short screws and some nuts. And that's all of the components that we've got.